Today, we're going to dive into the PayPal MCP server, what it is, why it matters, how we built it, and how to get started. First, some brief introductions. I'm Brendan Lane. I lead developer product here at PayPal. And with me today is Vikram, who's one of my AI software engineers. And we're really going to try to teach you about how to get started with this new MCP service, what you can do with it, and where you might want to use it for your development needs. So first, maybe Vikram, can you tell us about the PayPal MCP server? What is it? And what does this mean?
Sure, Brendan. Hi, and thanks for having me today here. So I'm really excited to share what's PayPal MCP Server, what we have tried to achieve and stuff like bringing kind of new solutions to our customers and merchants. So yeah, before jumping into that, like just wanted to introduce briefly about like what's MCP, right? So which is kind of a booming word right now in the industry. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is an open source protocol created by Anthropic. It's a standardized way for AI models to access external tools and services. Think of it as a protocol that allows AI assistants to extend beyond their built-in knowledge, right? And actually perform actions in other systems. We leveraged this protocol and implemented the MCP servers at PayPal to let AI assistants directly connect to our payment services. So, and here at PayPal, the MCP server implementation has been particularly exciting because it represents the intersection of two transformative technologies, right? Like which is AI in one space and payments in another. And it acts like a bridge that allows users to actually use conversational AI for making the payments. Right? Isn't it exciting? Right? That's the new norm of doing payments. Like instead of you pushing buttons, just ask an AI assistant to do payments on behalf of you. So, and this is like basically allowing an AI agent or an AI assistant such as like Claude Desktop or Cursor or Windsurf or Chat GPT as an example, like using them to create invoices or check your transactions or manage your payments through with the simple natural language commands. Yeah, that's why like we have created PayPal MCP Server.
Okay, cool. So MCP is basically a new standard that makes it much easier for different data and services to interact with each other, especially as it relates to AI and agents and AI assistants. What are some of the what are the big benefits of this? So what's the benefit? What's the core functionality? Like why would someone want to use this?
Right. So that's a great question, right? Like why do we need this right now, right? So like with PayPal MCP server, like we are essentially removing the technical barriers between clients and our payment infrastructure, right? So instead of like navigating through complex APIs we have or web interfaces we have as a payments company, we have a lot of payment solutions which have act very differently and requires a lot of input parameters, set of inputs. Now like clients can directly use their AI assistant, right, for their needs. Like, for example, in the current world, like if they have to create an invoice via an API and like on the website, on the PayPal website, they have to go through the multiple tabs, input in the different descriptions and details of the product and services they offer. Or if they are using the API, they have to create the API structure for that, take care of input, that it won't fail through an input validation system and all. Right now, it's just like once they connect the MCP server, which we have carefully crafted and created in a way that it parses the parameters or inputs from the user's natural language. So now they can just do like, hey, can you create this invoice for my customer? As simple as that. Or analyze these transactions. And most of it's handled in the natural language, right? That's how you can ask your AI assistant, like, get me last week of transactions of mine and just see what's going on. How much did I spend, right? Or how much did I receive? So the translation between the natural language to the appropriate APIs are taken care by the AI assistant and between the PayPal MCP server that user shouldn't worry about. And the other most exciting key feature is, ability for merchants to build AI powered agents, right? Like with payment capabilities embedded in it. And like technically, if you see, we are exposing PayPal's transaction infrastructure through the MCP protocol, which means like these agents can autonomously, handle the entire sales funnel, like, accepting the information from the customer and creating a payment link or invoice and just giving it to the customer back for accepting the payments. So for the payment processing.
Okay, great. So two big benefits really. It's like one, agents can act on your behalf now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that you may want to set some parameters around what they can do and how they can do it. And then, just the ability to sort of speak in a natural language, right? If you have questions, you don't have to remember how this particular API works or what that variable was. you can start to use natural language, and the LLM can help figure out what are you trying to do and make sure it happens for you.
That's right. Yeah.
Very cool. Like, kind of give us some more examples. Like, what kind of problems does the MCP server really help solve?
Yeah. So that's the actual question overall in the industry, right? Like how does it making difference, right? So today we are like in the industry, AI industry itself, like we are witnessing AI is transforming nearly every aspect of our lives, right? Like blending seamlessly into our daily activities. Like today you can just talk to ChatGPT asking like, hey, I want to plan for a vacation. Like can you suggest few things? So. Or it might be for writing an email or summarizing your research or planning your vacation days. So in this fast evolving space, payments remain an essential part of the business, right? In our day-to-day activities. And that's the exact same reason why we built PayPal MCP Server, right? To ensure payment services are in pace with AI revolution, right? And we noticed many merchants are very interested in using AI for many of their tasks, right? Like for their day-to-day activities, instead of focusing more on how to accept the payments, they can focus more on their business side, right? And instead of like separating it out with the payments and keeping the complexity, so we want to actually connect the PayPal systems directly to AI assistants, and merchants seamlessly can you still use the PayPal services with the AI assistant and you do all the stuff all at one place. And merchants doesn't want to or need to switch between AI tools and payment systems separately. Now we want to make all work together and save time for them. So, and we are trying to make payments blend naturally into AI workflows, and we don't want to create complex system as in separate, so that commerce can get easier for merchants and their customers as well. So it's about keeping payment services simple while the more world still moves towards AI driven business. We want to keep payments also in the picture of AI.
Cool. So then, as a user, like, how would I want to use this just as an individual person? What kind of stuff can it do for me?
Yeah, so it helps you in both perspectives. Like PayPal has two different type of customers here. So PayPal consumers who are directly who can pay with PayPal or send money to their friends and family. So they can still connect to the remote PayPal MCP servers, which will talk about it, to basically interact with AI assistants and do the payments. Like, hey, can you send money to my friend? Just doing it like using the AI assistants with the voice or the text command. And for merchants especially, like for example, if there is a merchant who wants to do the business by accepting the payments in the invoices or via payment links, now all they can just do directly, hey, can you create a invoice link for me for so and so work which I did for this customer, so that I can accept the payment. And boom, AI assistant can talk to PayPal services using this PayPal MCP server and create the payment link or invoice link and send it to that customer. So here, all merchant is just doing typing to AI assistant or giving a voice command.
Okay, very cool. Let's see if we can show people a real example of this thing working. So maybe I can give a demo of somebody actually trying to buy something with a PayPal MCP server.
That's a very cool example, right? So that's what the AI revolution is. Like instead of going into a website, searching for a product, paying with the card, I would really love to see how I can just buy and pay using the AI assistant.
All right, let's give this thing a try. So here we are. We're going to show an example of somebody trying to use the PayPal MCP server to buy something. And what you're going to see is we have filmed an example with Claude, but you can really use any AI assistant or LLM that supports MCP. It's your choice. And we're going to show you a very developer focused view of this so you can kind of see the different tools we're using, or you can see all the different sort of payloads and responses. But this is actually something that is very possible to hide from the consumer or hide from the user if that's what you choose to do. So let's go. So just as an example today, I'm going to say, I want to go shopping for some hoodies. Show me some hoodies. And in this case, it's Claude, but again, it could be any AI assistant responding. You can see already, I fat fingered it. Claude handled that. I misspelled hoodies, and it just says, oh, you're looking for hoodies spelled correctly. Let me find some. And the first thing it's asking you to do is see if you want to use one of our tools to go ahead and find products in the MCP server. And so we said, yep, let's get a few. And Claude came back and said, great, here's some hoodie options for you. And, you can tell that these are a hand-picked selection, but there's a women's brown hoodie, there's a white hoodie, there's a men's hoodie, a couple of different things about them. And if I were a person or an agent acting on somebody's behalf, I might say, okay, these are some okay options, but maybe I want to pick a specific one and learn more. So I'm going to go ahead and say, how about the women's white hoodie here? And it'll think for a minute and it'll come back and say, hey, here's another tool you could use. Would you like to use one to learn more about this product? I'm going to say, cool. And then it'll give me a lot of details about this thing, right? So you can get a detailed description, you can get the price, you can get the size, you can get stock availability for does the store actually have them in, and really learn more. A lot of this is something you might do yourself today on the web, but with MCP servers, it's actually possible to have an agent kind of acting on your behalf, right? You might say, find me one that's in stock, or wait till it goes on sale and then find one for me. So it's asking me if I want to go ahead and buy this hoodie, and I'm going to say yes. Let me buy a small hoodie, and here's my email. There we go. Claude's already answering. Here you go. There's a tool if you want to go ahead and try a checkout. So I'm going to look at this and say, yep, I'm okay using this tool, and we're going to go ahead and try to buy this thing. So it takes just a second for Claude to sort of think it through and then say, we're initiating checkout. And this is the one part that it's hard to show on a single screen, but just like we would with a web transaction, it's actually going to ask me for a multi-factor just to make sure that I am who I say I am. So it can either go ahead and ping my PayPal app and I can say, yep, confirm, or it'll maybe text you and you can respond like, yeah, it's really me. But I am going to go ahead and confirm through two-factor auth that, yes, I am the person trying to buy this. It's really me. And then I'll just go ahead and type into Claude like, yep, I have handled the consent bit. And there it goes. So now it's treating this very equivalently to a web checkout. So it's going to ask for another tool to go ahead and fetch my wallet. And I will admit that as much as I would like to broadcast my personal credit card number and bank account on the internet, I have actually set up some test ones here. But you can see it's giving me options like, hey, do you want to pay with your bank account? Do you want to pay with your saved credit card? It's got a saved shipping and billing address for me. And so instead of having to type all that in or sort of answer it again, I can go ahead and say like, yeah, just use my bank and send it to my house. And there we go. And actually, this is it. It's going ahead and I'm going to ask like, yep, do you want to use the shipping address and everything from checkout? And I'm going to say yes. And that will complete the transaction. You can see the call that it's passing along, but it is going ahead and buying the thing for me, and that purchase is done. And so now, just like I would if I were buying it on a website, I'm going to get a little email with the details of this item and the shipping information and so on. And that was a whole end-to-end purchase. And again, this is something like I can do as a person if I'm sitting there and playing with chat, or it's something that developers can enable agents to do in case you want to have a machine kind of doing this on your behalf where you don't have to sit. So you can go ahead and tell it to like wait for a certain price or find the cheapest one, or maybe find one that can ship to your house by Thursday. And the LLM now has the logic and all the different tools to be able to go and do that for you without you having to sit there and type a bunch yourself into the browser. So this was a great demo of the MCP server in action. And now we can talk a little bit more about how it was built and some of the advantages.
Yeah, and this was a great demo, and thanks, Brendan, for sharing that. So it's actually the perfect example for the consumer use case, right? Where now consumers can just search for a product, buy for the product completely by integrating with the MCP servers. And this is basically the commerce kind of MCP servers for where PayPal is bringing into. This is a great example. Thank you, Brendan.
So how does MCP impact or improve the speed or the efficiency of this whole kind of purchase process for agents or for services?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because we are saying now PayPal MCP server is acting as a bridge between the users and existing PayPal infrastructure, which means it's a one more layer in between that, which is good, like great with which works with AI assistants and stuff. Yeah, but coming to the speed and efficiency, right? Like PayPal MCP server still continues to support the existing speed of payment APIs, like even though it is an additional layer added on top of it. But for connecting with an AI system, it still has its own challenges, right, in terms of processing and execution. But the MCP server does not negatively impact the original latency of the existing payment APIs, but it significantly enhances the AI agent's decision making speed. So it helps the agent determine the appropriate tools, and which internally has a API communication a relatively faster way for a given use case, and provides consistent and reliable results. Like as we have seen in the demo, once like at every single prompt, it's trying to pick up the MCP tool and try to pass the prompt and send it invoke the payment API. Even though if we are adding a little bit of latency in between, but it's basically for the whole set of use cases, it's still giving a faster response back.
So you can still do things kind of the old fashioned way, which is funny to say about APIs. But now there's sort of a new way to do it, especially for AI assistants, and MCP kind of speeds up that process end to end.
That's
So you've heard us kind of talk about agents, which I think is relatively new for some people to think about. How do agents actually orchestrate between all these different tools and services?
right. So, yeah, that's the reason the MCP server has been created as a central access point for AI agents, right? So, like, which means any AI assistant can connect to this MCP server once, and it can immediately pull all the PayPal tools and features without again additional setups for each service. So it's like one door that leads to all the PayPal tools within that MCP server.
Right. Yeah, I think we like to give the example of it. It almost feels analogous to the invention of USB, right? Suddenly
Yeah, right.
it's a plug of the same size that seems to work in more than one place, which is nice. Very cool. So this is the question the product manager always asks, but how easy is it to integrate with different users or agents? I mean, how much time is really saved? Like how bad could this be?
Yeah, that's the bread and butter of every business, right? Like one solution, how easy it is to integrate with different set of businesses and stuff, right? You're right, and this PayPal MCP server actually scales well for any business of like with any size. You know, a small shop can use it for basic needs, while large companies can handle thousands of transactions through the same system. So the integration is flexible, right? It can be used by a merchant on their own with an existing AI assistants like Claude or Cursor, as one you have shown in your demo, and it can be integrated into a custom AI agent as well. Like that's part of their website or an app. So this gives customers, different options based on their technical comfortable level, right? If they're building an agent by themselves, they can still extend its capabilities using this MCP tool. Or if they want to just directly use an AI assistant to connect to the PayPal MCP services, they can just do that.
So tell me a little bit about what's under the hood. Like what is the basic architecture of the MCP server like?
Right. So that's what everyone wants to know. Where basically
And we're waiting. Tell us.
PayPal has created two different MCP models to let AI assistants or agents connect to its enterprise capabilities. So one is the MCP server within the agent toolkit. We call it as toolkit option, which is the option we always refer as a local MCP server as well. So if you go through the PayPal.ai docs, you always see what's local MCP server. So that's what it is, which is available within the toolkit option. And because it is the MCP server for agents, which means the tools within that MCP server are executed within the same instance of the resource of that where agents are running. And the other model is the remotely hosted MCP server, which is running on the PayPal premises under an OAuth wrapper. Basically, one kind of MCP server is for the agents to connect to PayPal services, and the remotely hosted MCP server is for direct users to interact with PayPal services using their AI assistant.
Okay. And I guess how, if you think about like local and remote, how do local and remote connections differ?
Yeah. So PayPal MCP server within the agent toolkit option is more for developers, right? Like who wants to create an agent and enable it with PayPal capabilities. And this model requires the authentication via client ID and client secret. And PayPal's remote MCP server is for the direct users, as I mentioned, of PayPal, who can connect to any of their favorite AI assistant which supports MCP protocol, for example, Claude Desktop. For this model, the authentication happens using the username and password of the user. So once they connect it to remote MCP server, it automatically pops up the login screen of PayPal where they can just authenticate themselves by using their username and password. And we provide a consent screen asking for the permission. Once they are comfortable in providing the consent, that's it. The PayPal MCP server is connected to your AI assistant, and now you can use your AI assistant in behalf of your actions on the PayPal services.
So now the hard questions. Are there any performance differences? Anything a user would see differently if they were trying one versus the other?
Most of the tools and the logic within it are like very lightweight for now. So the performances and latency is mostly derived from the LLM powers. For example, what AI you are using in behind the scenes to access these MCP tools, because every model is like depends. Every model is different, right? And based on your token capabilities, like it can respond you as fast as possible or as slow as possible. So, and it has to understand the natural language and also understand the parameters that are needed to be passed down to the MCP tool. So it really depends upon the LLM power which runs behind this AI assistant or agents which we create.
Okay. So maybe one big question I would have is whether or not I'm just using this as a person or as a business. It really feels like security is going to be a very big deal. So how does the MCP server sort of work with security? What should I think about if I'm interested in using this?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, right? Because like we are dealing with payments here, and security is more important, and it's everything as it includes both sensitive, personal, and financial data. And our approach for this was like very straightforward. Like it has multiple security layers which we have built in as part of this end-to-end chain. So first is like a basic one, like which is really important. We use PayPal's proven OAuth authentication system, the same which is being used for millions of transactions daily, right? Like the PayPal server never stores the actual PayPal credentials. It only works with the secure access tokens which are generated as part of the initial handshake, which they have all with the limited permissions on the scopes attached to it. So MCP server within the toolkit is always executed on the client's local instance, and it only requires the access token for authenticating and communicating with the PayPal APIs. But remote MCP server does require client to log in with their PayPal credentials and agree to the scope consent even before generating the access token. And it will never store these credentials as well. So it's once you log in and give the consent, it just stores the access token and always uses the access token and refreshes it whenever it is needed after the validity period. And it only acts within the scopes which have been provided to it. And the second layer, basically, we built extensive input validations in the tools that checks and validates every request even before it reaches the PayPal API. This is usually to prevent the fraud or malicious inputs passing down to APIs. For example, if I'm just a fraud user is trying to create an invoice on a different email address, which we shouldn't be honoring it, right? Like we don't want to do a phishing attack. Like we don't want to honor the phishing attacks, right? So we extensively add the input checks, which user is asking for the invoice creation and what is the email they are providing for on top of which the invoice has to be created. So those kind of checks have been built in each tool for their business use cases. And third layer, which is like we design the server tools in such a way that the sensitive information never gets exposed to the AI models by themselves. So unless until user provides on their own to the AI assistant, the tools won't actually respond back with the sensitive information back to the LLM model. Like for example, if AI assistant can request for actions like creating an invoice, but it doesn't see the account number or payment details. So we try keeping the data as limited as possible in the response, which are specifically needed for the task. And also we have also implemented the transaction monitoring and rate limiting to detect unusual patterns and act proactively on that.
Okay, so it sounds like we're putting in a lot of the protections that people are used to, let's say, in the web world or elsewhere. Similarly, for business, we're also looking at a lot of the fraud and compliance issues that we kind of handle for businesses today. And then it sounds like there's been some additional thought given here to what scope and access do these things have. So if we're thinking about in a world in which there's AI models, there's also agents acting on behalf of people or businesses. We're really trying to make sure that we're basically giving access just for what's needed, and that's it, and not sort of spraying sensitive data around.
That's right.
Okay, cool. So let me ask about what happens when something goes wrong. With an MCP server, like how is error handling done, or what happens if a call fails?
Right. So yeah, actually, error handling is a little bit crucial when we were building the MCP server, because AI here we are actually responding, and the service kickoff is happening from an AI assistant, not from the user directly. So AI assistant, the AI model is actually using these tools to, pass the parameters and act upon based on the response it gets. So we are dealing with an AI here. And error handling is very important. That's why what we try to do is the tool response should be in such a way that AI assistants have to understand what went wrong and communicate that clearly to users again, right, for the next steps. So we designed the server tools to actively check for failures at every step of the set of instructions and translate technical error messages into something that AI can work with, right? Like when an API call fails, our server doesn't just return a generic error. It provides a structured information about what specifically went wrong. Like, for example, if I have to give an example, if someone asks their AI assistant to create an invoice but provides an invalid email address, the one which I was just talking about, right? In case of to validate the phishing attacks, we still have this email validation as part of the tool. So then the PayPal API will reject it, right? Like if a different user is asking for an invoice on a different email address which is not verified with, so PayPal API will straight away reject it, right? And now the MCP server will catch this, identify it as an email validation error, and sends back a clear message that an AI can understand, saying that like this email address is not valid. So the AI assistant then responds naturally to the user, maybe saying something like, hey, this email address which you have provided isn't valid. Can you provide a correct one? Then user can pass on the correct one, and then the flow continues. So we don't want to break as with a single API error, we don't want to completely break the conversation between AI assistant and the user. We still want to give a proper error message back so that AI can actually handle it in such a way and take the conversation like make it flowing naturally with the correct data inputs, taking back and reheating the tool again and then continuing the process. So that's what we are trying to put the error handling and make it work seamlessly.
Okay, great. And look, I know before we looked at a shopping demo and it had a lot of the classic shopping features like, hey, let's find something, let's sort through it, go ahead and start a checkout and figure out how to pay for it and get a confirmation. But really, I think there's a lot of different tools we put in this thing that we're expecting people to compose in different ways. Maybe we can look at a totally different demo of this thing working and see what it looks like in a different context.
Oh yeah, sure. I would really love to show the demo, like a sample example, how these MCP tools can be used for creating an sales agent, let's say, right? So let's see how that might work. So for example, I have created a simple agent, which is cookie selling assistant. So here I have given instructions to add that agent, saying that, hey, you are a cookie seller agent. You have to help customer by providing the menu, and if they are interested in buying the cookies, then use this payment agent to make the payment, accepting the payment from the user. So I have created this agent, and whatever you're seeing, it basically this agent has been created using the Google's ADK. And this payment agent, which I am attaching to this root agent, has been instructed very clearly that these are the cookie prices, and this is the business email for accepting the payments and all. Now use these tools to complete the payment or accept the payment or help user to finish the payment whenever user is trying to purchase the cookies. So if you see these tools, I'm actually using the PayPal MCP tools, one of the payment acceptant services, which is via invoices. So I'm passing this invoice creation tool to this payment agent and giving a clear instruction for that to how to accept the payment. So let's see how this might work, right? So let's go into, if you see, this is a web interface on using that agent. So let's talk to that agent, right?
Very polite to the agent.
Yeah. So let's see how it responds back. Yeah, hey, see, I'm your personal cookie assistant. So, okay, what's on the menu? Let's ask what's menu. Okay.
Like chocolate chip.
Okay, let's buy chocolate chip cookie. Okay, now it's asking how many. Let's say 10. Yeah. Now the interesting thing happens, right? So it transferred it to the payment agent, and now payment agent wants to create an invoice for us, right? And it knows what it has to ask for and what are the details and all the cost it has. Now, all it has to do is use the PayPal MCP tools, the invoice creation tool, and create an invoice. For that, it is asking me my email, right? Let's say my email is, give a sample email. That's not my true email, but okay, let's see. Now it triggered, the agent knows the PayPal MCP tool and it is triggering the create invoice tool within that. And the tool take cares of parsing the parameters with all this from this conversation, and then hit the invoice APIs on the PayPal infrastructure, and then get the response back with the invoice link. So let's see how it's gonna look like. Awesome. See, now we have the invoice link. I have an invoice link to pay for the cookies. Let me open it up. Chocolate chip cookies, 10, and it's $20, and I can just pay for it. So this is a benefit out of it, right? Like I can focus on building the agents and giving clear instructions and all, and just plug in the PayPal MCP tools to it, and it will take care of connecting to PayPal services and providing all the payment services for you.
That was great. So what if I want to get started? So what are some of the common best practices, mistakes, other things that developers should look out for when they're first trying to integrate with an MCP server?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've seen a lot of developers, facing some common challenges when they start working with this MCP server, and most of them come from like treating it like a traditional API integration, and or passing all the tools to a single agent and expecting it to use them effectively. And this is still fine because like since agents with MCP are still in early adoption technology, and everyone, including developers, are learning new patterns, how to combine them, use them, and all. For example, like we have variety of tools available in the MCP server, right? Like few of them are like for payment related actions, which are like one example is like creating an invoice, which I saw, or creating an order, or creating a payment link. So all of them can be used for accepting payments, but they differ based on the use case or how a merchant wants to accept the payment. So, and attaching all these tools to a single agent can, confuse it little bit, like while picking up the tool for the payment action. For example, if a customer says, I would like to purchase this cookie, as I just did. So if agent is fed with all these three tools, it can behave, it can hallucinate, it can behave and return inconsistent results. Like one time it can try to use the invoice creation, the other time it can try to use the payment link creation. So it is always important to create an agent with specific focus and attach the MCP server tools which are useful for those specific needs, or instead of like dumping everything to that single agent, and like creating a payment agent and attaching only invoice related tools to that agent for consistent behavior. So every time when a customer wants to buy a cookie, it always generates an invoice link. If a merchant always accepts in the payment link, just pass the payment MCP tools, payment link related MCP tools to that agent. So that how we still keep the focus of the agent, and instead of going to multiple having a inconsistent behavior.
How about what kind of logging or monitoring or other sort of observability comes with something like this?
Yeah, so logging is also a very important thing because anything can go wrong, right, in this chain. After that, like debugging and AI driven payment flows can be very tricky. So you have to see both what is AI requesting for and how PayPal services are being responded with. So on the MCP server side, we log every interaction with detailed request and response information. This includes what natural language command came into AI assistant and how we translated it to PayPal API calls and what happened with those calls. So we have integrated it with our existing error correlation system. When something goes wrong, we can trace it back through the entire chain, from the user's natural language request to AI's interpretation to the specific PayPal API that was invoked and which failed or caused an issue. So that's how we try to, keep track of the errors, or, analyze what went wrong if something goes wrong.
So where would I go to get started?
Cool. So you can reach out on the paypal.ai, where it has all the different friends where PayPal is supporting on the AI. And there is a dedicated section for MCP server over there where you can click for the docs, and it will take you to the properly written document page for all the MCP different ways of integrating to different models of MCP server within PayPal. We have local, we have remote, so it has all the list of facts or issues which we commonly see and all the integration steps.
Okay, great. Thanks. So just to briefly recap, today we heard a lot about PayPal's MCP server, how it supports intelligent shopping flows, how you can use MCP to access pre-built functions and connect directly to PayPal APIs, but in this case, LLMs handle a lot of the complexity for you. And it really is a fast and easy way to integrate with PayPal. So if you are interested in learning more or getting started yourself, we recommend going to paypal.ai to get started with our MCP server or our agent toolkit. And otherwise, thanks a bunch for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Brendan.